It's Bigfoot Collectors Club with Michael and Riley. I know a story of high strangeness or two. Let's do this.
Hello and welcome to Bigfoot Collectors Club, the show where we talk to amazing guests about their personal paranormal history and share stories of high strangeness. I'm your host, Michael McMillan. With me always is your fill in the blank here, listeners. We didn't get one this week.
Forgot to look one up.
We didn't get one.
Let's just go classic. Say it.
Ultra terrestrial producer.
There we go.
Riley
Bray.
Bray. Oh,
Hi,
I said it with you. Hi. Send in your suggestions for super producer Riley Bray's title. We're going to jump right into it because we should. Yeah. Because we have one of our favorite guests of all time here. Our guest today has made a career chasing down the truth behind UAPs, UFOs. Do you say NHI now?
I mean, I've always said NHI.
Okay, great. He's coined the phrase NHI.
No. It's been coined a long time ago, but yeah, that is a term that is used for non-human intelligence.
Great.
You can wrench that.
Yeah, wrench it around however you want to do it.
I want to manhandle the microphones.
Use your Hulk strength.
Yeah, you're good. He's the filmmaker behind Patient 17, Hunt for the Skinwalker, and Bob Lazar, Area 51 and Flying Saucers. He's also the co-host of the podcast Weaponized with George Knapp. Mm-hmm. He's also the star of the second season of UFO Revolution, which is streaming right now on Tubi. Club Scouts of all timelines, please welcome back to the clubhouse the most nuclear guest we've ever had on the podcast, Jeremy Corbell.
Nuclear. That's great. Thanks for having me, guys. It's a pleasure to be here again and see you guys, my friends. Last time we saw each other, it was accidentally on an airplane.
Yeah. It was fun. Yeah. Where else do you want to meet Jeremy Corbell but in the sky?
Yeah, truly. I was like, this makes sense. Yeah.
This is an identified flying object. It's our friend Jeremy.
Yes. And then we had a wonderful time gallivanting around one of my favorite towns.
I think it was weird. They moved me because somebody was like really tall and I gave them my seat. And then they moved me to this next to this huge other guy. And I'm like, oh no. And I look over and it's Riley Bray.
You're like, I know this.
It was amazing.
Guy.
We had fun, man.
We did. That was a good one.
Yeah. So don't remember where we were actually, like what city.
We're going to Austin.
That's what it was.
We went, we saw Duncan Trussell.
Oh shit!
God,
That's all coming back.
Yeah,
that is so cool. That was when we went to the mothership. We saw Duncan Trussell. Yeah, that was cool.
Man, what a blast!
I know we still haven't had Duncan Trussell on the show. What are we doing?
He is mind blowing. You got to get him, man. He's an awesome human being. I don't even know if he's human, actually.
Of anyone, I wouldn't put it past him. Yeah.
He's just lying about being an alien.
All right, so for 7 years we've been doing this podcast, and you've been talking to secret contacts and bringing the UAP subject out of the dark corners of conspiracy and into the light. We have a lot to discuss, but let's begin with this, Jeremy. You're not on the hot seat here. Let's begin with the present. Tell us about the new season of UFO Revolution. What's going on there?
Yeah. Oh, cool. Yeah. That's so typically I'm pointing cameras at things.
Yeah.
This is one where they're pointing a camera at me. It's a really cool series because it was a hard decision for me to make, which is let them actually film as things unfold. You know, we're hoping there's going to be a new congressional hearing, and they wanted to really be like in my space. And my family and I are pretty private, which is funny for somebody that's an extrovert, but we are pretty private. And so it was a big choice to allow that to happen. And, you know, the agreement is you tell it like it is, you document it how it goes down. I'm good with it. And they did a great job. I mean, it's an entertaining show, but it does dive into the core things that are of most interest to me. Not, just UFOs, but the process of how this information may get out to the public. And, you said, I talked to secret sources. It's not secret.
Yeah.
It's confidential. People come to me in confidence and they're like, this is what I know. This is what I experienced. People tell me this is what I worked on. I don't want you to publicize this, but I want you just to know. I don't want anything from you. And most of the time it is legitimate information. Some of the time people are just trying to trick me. And so I'm in this weird place where people know they can go to me now. So I have to filter the good information from people trying to distort my understanding of what's going on.
So do you feel that those people who are, let's get right into it, are trying to trick you, do you feel like they're agents of disinformation, or are they people trying to grab the spotlight and just get some attention?
It's not the spotlight. I mean, I always start a call, like use a voice changer and call me sometime and tell me you got something to tell me. First thing you're going to hear from me, first thing you're going to, that'd be so great. First thing you're going to hear from me is, so if you're looking to get your story out, I'm not your man. I'm on cosmic time. I really want to understand it. When I'm vetting a source or a contact, it takes me sometimes years because I want to know, how do they treat the rest of their life rather than this one thing they want me to know? And I know that drives some people crazy. People on a faster paced news cycle drives them crazy, but I want to understand as much as I do want to report. I want to report actually less than I want to understand. So that becomes like a thing for me. So anyway, when people reach out, it's typically not that they want me to say anything publicly about it at all. So by nature, if they're lying, then it is disinformation. They just want me to think it or know it. And I have to guard myself against, bad or corrupt information, because it will then be brought up by another party. Even years later, I've tracked it. With AI, I can track my conversations if they're documented, and I can track them and look for key terms, thoughts, and ideas. And I can see, patterns and groups of people trying to influence me to be more public about certain things which are not accurate. So I've just, that's the world I'm living in now, as I'm looking back at all the information that I've obtained over a decade now.
Yeah.
And trying to see what are those influences that are trying to get out what I believe to be a false narrative.
And let's be honest, we're talking about people here that are like working in the government sector,
100%
of some sort,
verified, badged. Like I make sure when I get that deep with someone that if they tell me they're human intelligence from OSI, I'm not even going to name them all because it's not good. But anyway, a bunch of these, I'll be contacted by what I call badged individuals representing either independently or officially their organization of choice, or whatever it is. And I think they know that if they don't tell me that, I'm going to find out, because I have before. I've had contacts come to me and I have found out before that they work in official capacity, whether or not they're contacting me on that official capacity or not. They, I have a way of finding that out.
Okay.
And I think it really bothers people. So now it's all up front.
Jeremy, I can look in your eyes and I know that you have a way of finding that out.
I do. I do. Yeah. I think it's really pisses people off on the inside in these agencies, because they are supposed to plug leaks. How the fuck this bearded, tattooed weirdo gonna find out what shirt someone's wearing inside of an agency? Now that is a significant leak. But as a journalist, that is my job, is to have established sources inside of
that you trust
over long periods of time,
that
I trust with certain things. I won't let them babysit my dog, but other than that,
sure.
Yeah.
How do you wade through these things as they come in? Like, or can you not really say, because you don't want to?
I can say anything.
Methods.
I just will regret it later, but I can say anything. So
you can do whatever you want.
God, this brings up so much anxiety. I have PTSD. This is not why I started looking at UFOs. I was going
to say, Jeremy, one of the questions you probably don't get is, how are you holding up?
Yeah. Well, I think I'm doing fine. I think I'm doing great.
Good.
But yeah, I mean, like is it a gut thing? Do you have a method? Like, how do you sort of wade through these things as they come in?
You mean human contacts when people come?
Yeah.
And agency people?
Yeah. Like, how do you tell? Like, do you get a sense right when you get a call of someone? Like, do you sort of have that intuition read, or is it a long process? Or
I'd be a fool to rely on intuition. People are really good at their jobs. So people that collect human intelligence or try to influence through human intelligence, they are really good at their jobs. So I'd be a fool to trust my gut.
Right.
I start out with, cool, prove it, show me. I start, a source will call and it's supposed to, or a new contact, and I always go straight to video. I'm like, cool, here I am. This is me. You know who I am. That's how you got to hold me. Show me who you are. So immediately people are put on the spot and they got to show me who they are, where they are.
Right.
And it's just like, look, you got my number. You're contacting me now. Shut up, or put up or shut up. I don't mean to be abrasive, but I have to be efficient. Otherwise, I'll be in text contact over Signal with somebody who says they're somebody for 4.5 years. And then I'll find out later, it wasn't who they said it was.
Right.
And that's happened to me.
I think in the world of investigating UAPs, you do have to put up some boundaries.
Yeah, there you go.
Solid
Easy way
boundaries.
to say it.
Yeah. So are these folks coming through under the like auspice of I'm a whistleblower. I'm sharing with you a secret, or are they coming through with like, hey, I know you're into this. I have some experience here and I kind of want to help you with what you're after here.
Yes, and a third. And the third
Okay.
is people that want to unburden themselves from an experience that they can't tell other people, not even
Right.
their wives or family, and they just want somebody else who's going to hear it, who's not going to judge it, and not going to talk about it.
Wow.
And that's my superpower, apparently, is when people say this is confidential, not to be shared. Apparently, I'm one of the only people on planet Earth that can actually do that.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was such a divine, ability to keep your fucking mouth shut. But can I say fuck on your podcast?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
Fucking great. So anyway, but to answer your question kind of directly, people come to me because one, they know they can. Like, who do you call if you're in the military and you've had an encounter, an experience, or accidentally even had what they call spillage, which is accidental exposure to some element of a UFO program. I mean, it's like, if you're going to go to anybody, who's safe to go to? And so I guess that's why people will reach out to me. There's also this legacy of trust over time.
Right.
So George Knapp, man I work with, who's been at this for 40 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's some inherent trust there that there's a reason he chose to work with me, just like I chose to work with him. And then, people do have like a knitting circle. They spread the word, they're like, hey, Commander Fravor told it on my podcast with George on Weaponized. He's like, oh yeah, even after it started getting public, Jeremy kept to his word. He didn't report on all the stuff he coulda. He held back. So when you do that and you keep your word to someone like Commander David Fravor, that spreads around. So then people say, well, I know these guys, they're good guys. I know what he said about Jeremy. We can go to Jeremy. So it's all those things at one time.
Right.
It's easy to reach out to me. It's harder to like get to that point where we're on the phone. I try to keep that a lot harder, like a lot of boundaries. But by the time someone gets there, they either really do have something to say or they really want to influence me with some bullshit.
Right. Yeah.
And then that takes time
Right.
to figure out that difference.
So you're vetting that against things that sources you've already had this circle of trust that you've built up over so many years when someone sort of tries to come into the inside, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you're vetting against some stuff you already know, but you want to be a little careful of that because people can come to you with seeded information and say, well, this, and that, and you're open to that because you know it to be true, and not many people do.
Right.
But then they come in with the bullshit to the side. And listen, it's a small percentage, but it's not insignificant.
Sure.
People trying to get me to buy something which is not real happens, man, more than I'd like to admit. So there is this sense where when people come to you, you have to look at it as its own standalone. You prove to me, you show to me. And I try to go down that road, but I also don't want to get people in trouble. Right.
Yeah.
So I never ask for anything that will ever get them in trouble. I don't solicit, they call it. That's illegal, right? I don't teach them how to prove to me certain things. That's illegal. But I have catch-all emails that are spread around. So at some point, people do send stuff to me, and then I got to evaluate it,
The thing that I find really humanizing about what you just said is the idea that there are people who just want to unburden themselves with their experiences. I mean, we've had a little bit of that on the show ourselves, like
Sure.
with the Elf House people writing in. What's your take on this? But I have to imagine if what's really happening is really happening, and what some of these people are coming to you with, they must have some really fucked up experiences or paradigm shifting experiences.
Paradigm shifting, fucks them up for a little bit. I would say the majority of people that come to me, maybe because the way I've presented myself is they are coming just to tell me, not because they want anything from me. I'd say that's 90% of the communications that I get. And to be very clear, 90% of that is civilian, has nothing to do with military insiders or whistleblowers. So that tells you something. That tells you that there's a huge amount of the population that still doesn't feel comfortable when they've had a profound paradigm shifting experience to do anything other than to convey it to one person. They tell me not even their wives, their husbands, their family, their children, nobody. So that's kind of sad, that we still have that where people can't just tell it like they experienced it because it's stigmatized. That's reducing. And I know you talked about that in an episode of yours that I listened to. That is reducing, right? But still there.
Yeah, definitely. All right, we got to take a break already. This is insane. When we come back, we're just going to do more of this.
Yes, keep it going.
Just a little more of this.
Yeah, great.
Existing.
Yeah. All right, we're back with Jeremy Corbell. Before we jump back in, why don't we nominate our 5-star Club Scout of the Week? This is someone who's given us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It helps us get our podcast to more people, right, Jeremy?
100%.
Who can then unburden themselves.
Yes, exactly.
And this person unburdening themselves is named Royal Vampire 21. And they say, big feet and more. I love me some big feet, aliens, and ghosts. Oh my. P.S. Hope you're all having a great day out there. 5 stars.
I just love a little,
Simple
how's
and
everybody
sweet.
doing?
Yeah.
I so wrote that.
So one of the wild things about the past few years is that even with all the work that you've done, and others that are doing to make the UAP, NHI, UFO, I'm a UFO guy. So
I say UFO. It is.
I like the classic. Yeah.
Yeah, making all of this stuff more transparent. I feel like the general public is not as aware as they should be. And one of the questions that comes up in UFO Revolution is this idea of, and we'll get into it because I want to talk about Immaculate Constellation and all of that. But if there's 2 things going on. One, I feel like everyone should be paying more attention than they are to these congressional hearings and all this stuff that's coming out. And then there's this other thing of like, a lot of people who I would describe as like normies who aren't into this stuff are coming up to me and be like, did you see that the Pentagon admitted that there are UFOs? And I'm like, well, yes and no. Like, I want, like, what do we tell the people? What do you want people to get about where we are right now?
Yeah. Attention is a funny thing. I never would say people need, I hear this a lot. Why aren't people paying more attention? Man, we got a lot of shit to pay attention
No
to.
shit. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
We got to take care of our families. We got to take care of the fires be coming through canyons. I mean, everybody puts the amount of attention on things that feel important to them at the time.
Yeah.
It would be great if at some point we are so harmonized as humanity that we can look to the stars and decide that we want to go further, and we're going to do it in unison, and we're going to do it as an endeavor, a planetary endeavor. I mean, then these big questions might start being tackled rather than forced down people's throats. That's what we're doing right now. I mean, with Congress and everything, it's a fight. Every millimeter is fought for, and I am personally involved in that because I think it's important. I think it's important for just so many fundamental things about what it means to be human, and I'm curious as fuck about it. But I'm just saying, when the world doesn't respond with the attention we think it should, it's not necessarily our job to say that's more important. I just want to say that first because I hear this a lot. Why aren't people, more? I think curiosity and the kind of wonderment of what it means to exist right now is what compels us to look at these topics. It does for me.
Of course.
So with that said, you said normies coming up to you. So you're talking about like your mom and dad, your crazy uncle being like, hey, so what's up with that UFO thing?
Yeah.
That's like happening now?
Or like the Pentagon said.
has confirmed.
And I'm like,
Pentagon
okay,
said.
well, I'm like, but okay, so the one guy that everyone keeps saying the Pentagon just said, he's been saying this for a while, and he's not with the Pentagon. Oh, this goes back to, okay, so do you have 25 minutes so I can talk about, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So they're not like officially, the Pentagon is not coming out with some huge statement.
Exactly.
I mean, they do admit UFOs are real. That's a Pentagon admission.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that they're of unknown origin.
Right.
And that they're absolutely our government, the Pentagon, Arrow, a lot of these organizations involved with the government have said that we don't know who they are, and they appear to be able to perform in ways that even our most modern and technologically advanced craft cannot. And that's a head scratcher.
Yeah.
I mean, that's about where it ends.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So there's no other big claims, right?
Because
Right.
it seems like it feels like the difference, because I do feel like, when Tenney, I'm going to quote Tenney for the millionth, Johnny L. Tenney, he talks about like this stuff, the congressional hearings, all these things has been going on ever since 1947, all this stuff, you know what I mean? Or earlier, but really since the flying saucer craze started.
Well, not the hearings. on
Not
it.
the hearings.
Right. We had the first one in 50 years was recently.
Right,
Right.
right. But the thing that I find is a shift in the narrative is it used to be the government would say, no, there's no such thing.
Mhm.
If you saw something, you were confused. It was either
Or crazy.
a star,
Yeah.
swamp gas, or you're nuts. Now there is this admission that I do think this is an actual paradigm shift to them saying, yeah, no, there is something. We're just not going to tell you what it is, or we're going to pretend like we don't know what it is. And it seems like for them, the safer question in a weird way is to say, we don't know what it is.
Yeah. So there is a battle right now. So I'll tell you from my work, what you call on the inside of this, right? Like trying to work with congressional members and beyond that. What I'm noticing is that there is a conflict going on. We force the issue, we, humanity, people, interest, curiosity, we force the issue that the admission that there are UFOs, that they're unidentified, that they are unique, they have unique qualities and characteristics, that being admitted was because of the push. Now on the inside, there's a push back. How do we shape this emerging UAP narrative?
Yeah.
That's a very important quote I want people to remember for all time. I keep saying it. So right now, what I'm noticing, they do want you, our government as a whole, right, kind of united, is telling you, okay, so UFOs are real. So that's okay to know now. Whereas before with Project Blue Book and all of these programs, it was nothing to see here, move on, you're mass hallucinating. That was in response to a lot of the massive sightings that occurred, like the 1952 flyover Washington, D.C.,
Yeah.
where we scrambled jets. I mean, look, UFOs are all the buzz because people are fucking seeing them.
Yeah.
Like, that's like bottom line.
And we just came off of, I mean, the timing with this drone stuff was so wild that it came right on the heels. I mean, started 4 days later, the same week as the congressional hearings on November
I never
13th.
even thought about it that way.
It happened. Well, you were very busy that week, but like,
kind of.
yeah.
but it. So, and again, we're kind of working our way back from the present to. I want to kind of get to November 13th and just Immaculate Constellation in general. But what is your take on the drone stuff? The main feed was on hiatus during that period. We talked a little bit about it on BCC, the other side. I spoke about it with, as an armchair, enthusiast about this stuff on a Funny Feeling podcast. And my whole thing was like, it's a classic flap. We're not going to find out what they are. And one day it's just going to stop. And I feel like that prediction of mine came true. And then just a couple days ago, the new administration walks out in the White House press conference and says, nothing to see here. We don't know what it is.
Yeah, well, no, they actually said that it was FAA authorized flights and hobbyists.
Which to me is nothing to see here.
Well, but that's like, we do know what it is, but we're not you don't need to worry about that.
Yeah.
It was worse than nothing to see here.
Not the enemy.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so there's a lot to kind of talk about with all of this.
Okay, because my opinion was it was that, but then all the orbs started happening and reports of these things shape-shifting. I mean, can you help us cut through some of what was going on during this flap? And I'd love to hear just your take on all of it.
Sure. Yeah, so there's a lot of elements to what you just said. I want to be real clear. Like, UFOs are real, but not everything we see is UFOs, right?
Correct.
So
Good way
think
of
about
putting it,
that.
yeah.
Correct.
A lot of that kind of shape-shifting footage, like I analyzed it, you've got a light source aiming towards the lens of the camera. It looks like a ball of light. Then as the object, I'll call it unit because we're not sure whose it is, when it banks, then it appears like it's becoming a plane or shape-shifting. That's the human creativity getting involved there, and not understanding the way cameras and light refraction works, which I get. I mean, who studies that shit, So that's one aspect. But
Riley,
nerd.
sheepishly.
Nerd. That is one aspect, right? But I know for sure that there is another aspect to what was going on and is still going on and spreading, by the way, in other places. Just Indiana just came up with some swarms. But understand, this has been going on a long time. Maybe not at this frequency like in New Jersey, but the idea of unknown aerial vehicles loitering over critical infrastructure, sensitive nuclear and military-based installations is something we have been dealing with for really since the atom bomb. Now, what's happening is people are becoming a little bit more tuned into that. And then when you have a larger event like this, and I don't know if the New Jersey thing, I don't know ultimately what that is, but I know the explanation is bullshit. And I'm going to explain to you why. Real simple, right?
All right.
So if the FAA had authorized all of these flights, and that's what people were seeing, then why did the FAA put up restricted fly zones on areas that were of high concern? Did they authorize the flights over sensitive military installations? We had a whole bunch of incursions, U.S.-based incursions, but also overseas in England.
This is happening in the U.K. That's where it kind of started, this flap.
So the U.K. incursions were U.S. bases that dealt with nuclear weaponry. So you've got that going on. Then I happen to know, because I have contacts in a lot of these, I'll call them critical infrastructure sites, that when they're looking at these objects, some absolutely, we send shit up all the time to scout out what's going on. Some of the objects, not a small amount, were of atypical, what they call morphology, which means a weird shape, not aerodynamic.
Morphology doesn't mean morphing. Changing shape.
No, but these objects were not aerodynamic. They were caught on FLIR camera, which is forward-looking infrared, which is just basically a thermal kind of camera. And they caught them coming up out of the water, going over sensitive installations, going back into the water. Now, I happen to know that. It's not something I've reported on, but that is solid information. I can put it that way. There's footage of that. And that is something that I find so interesting, is that if these were just some sort of FAA, we said you can do it, then why was the FBI publicly trying to get local help in identifying? How come our anti-drone technology that we deployed was ineffective? It is so nonsensical for the White House to come out, and everybody's so hopeful the new administration is going to be age of transparency. You're going to learn everything from the Kennedy assassination to all the muck that's been going on to UFOs. You're going to learn about it. Well, proof's in the pudding.
Yeah.
We've just been told directly by the White House, nothing to see here, move on, like you said. And in fact, these were all FAA authorized drones, which when they said that, you realize it is an absolutely nonsensical answer.
Yeah.
They would tell the commanders of bases if they were doing any kind of work over those bases, and that didn't happen.
And
I know for a fact.
This is what I mean by this has been the same since 1947, bro.
Don't expect it to change. It's going to take journalism. It's going to take the will of the public. It's going to take a lot of that to get this out about UFOs.
So what's your
whistleblowers?
What is your hunch on this stuff? Are they covering the fear that a foreign nation is spying on us and that this is foreign tech, or are they really covering up the idea of there might be some non-human intelligence coming out of the ocean and checking up on us?
There have been so many theories. And look, there's probably two things going on at one time here. No doubt there's people flying up drones, just like the fires that collided with a plane, trying to see what the fuck's up with these, know?
Yeah, totally.
But one's the sizes of SUVs. And by the way, that's well documented. There were helicopter pilots that had to abort when they were looking for them because of the movements, proximity, and swarming of these units that were huge in comparison to hobbyist drones. So once you realize that all of that is going on, it's been reported, there's frustration that the FAA didn't know what the fuck was going on, and even the FBI didn't know what was going on. And we weren't told what was going on because they didn't know. Then you have to ask yourself, well, what is it? Is this some foreign technology from a terrestrial adversarial nation that's just scouting and mapping? That's the dumbest thing to do. Put a bunch of lights on your craft and start going over nuclear bases. I mean, come on, right? So I don't think it's quite that.
That makes sense.
Then you think about, well, is it kind of our stuff?
Is it private contractors going, hey, look at what we can do?
Okay, so so that's a funny way to do it. Is to fly over sensitive and restricted airspace.
But if they're we can do, look what we could do this for the enemy.
But if
we can do
they're
it
being
here.
all stealthy, why they
Yeah.
got lights and
I don't know.
look, it doesn't add up, and we're not getting straight answers. And I don't know. I'm not an authority on any of this. Right? I don't know. I'm like you. I'm observing it and just doing the math, and it does not add up. So I don't know where this goes, but I know that this issue is persistent. And I tried to highlight this a couple years ago. It's not only the issue of unknown advanced craft in restricted area, but it's also our inability to figure out or determine what it is, or to counter it, or to have the right measures to counter it, and then to even report it. There are bottlenecks in the reporting system, even when we're out in Iraq, going to central command when we're trying to tell them, hey, we just shot at a UAP, which I released an image of George Knapp.
Yeah, I
we
remember
released an image of that. It looks fucking weird. It looks like Kermit the Frog, but they did shoot at it. That is actual valid information.
Okay.
But the thing is that reporting from that back to central command is so restricted that we are at a loss. We're going to have strategic surprise against the United States if we don't sort that out. Commander David Fravor says this a few times to me. The United States' relationship to UFOs is like that of an alcoholic. Until you admit there's a problem, you're never going to be able to deal with it.
Interesting.
And that's
putting it.
Yeah, he's serious.
Very much so.
Wow, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, the way you walk through that, dude, that explanation is like farcical when you actually consider all those factors.
Like that word.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
This is where, though, because I can even take it one step further too, piggybacking off of what you're saying. And this is where we get into the realm of high strangeness. Okay, if it is a spy, if it's somebody, foreign adversary, why? If it's an alien, why?
Mhm.
Why put on your lights? Why fly where you can be seen? If you're not going to actually engage with us, why? You know what I mean? And this goes back to a theory or a thought that I've had that I know you and George Knapp have talked about on your show is they want to be seen. If this is whatever it is, wants us to know that it's there in some way or another. Like the Phoenix Lights, for example. That was a demonstration.
Yeah.
And if it was aliens, it was aliens saying, hey, just a reminder, everybody, you're not alone on this planet, right? And every now and then, it doesn't feel like a show of force, really, I mean, maybe that's naive, but this idea of like, I know you're all down there, you're dealing with your lives, you're dealing with all the turmoil on the planet, but just so you know, you aren't alone. And we're going to fly a couple giant boomerang, motherships over a town just to kind of remind you every now and then.
A show of force would look quite different.
I think so.
I think so too.
That doesn't mean it's all good though. I'm undetermined on it, but when you're talking about Phoenix Lights, I mean, we don't and didn't and still don't have a craft that had that shape or size and could fly like that slowly, so big. We just don't. I wish we had that technology. To the best of my understanding, we fucking do not.
Yeah.
And so, what is this? Well, you're talking about bidirectional mimicry is what one scientist was talking about this. Dr. Colm Keller has talked about this.
Oh, sure. Yeah. The Skinwalker Ranch.
Well, he's been involved with this UAP thing even for our government way before he was looking at that. So, anyway, so with that, if you go back in the history of incursions over bases and that kind of thing, you go back into the 50s. I've got reports of a red and green light and an unknown object. So then you have to ask the question, are they just kind of trying to blend in with our kind of normal flight characteristics?
Yeah.
So that's that theory. I don't prescribe to that or subscribe to that or whatever. I just know that people talk about
it's a
that.
theory. Yeah.
It is a theory, and I think it's worth exploring, as all theories are, until they can be ruled out. But the other thing is you get things from even the 50s and, where you have these spheres with cubes inside. I have an article I can send you. It's exactly a description of what in 2015, Lieutenant Ryan Graves has been talking about, that most pilots are seeing these cubes with spherical auras. I will send you the article that describes that exact thing. So I'm seeing a pattern that we're just not catching, that this has been like this for quite some time. Now, were these things, or are these things over New Jersey, Indiana, Colorado, are these things just have a prosaic explanation? Maybe, but we're not being told it. And we're not being given the goods on it. And so that also is just mind-boggling, because if there is something else we're hiding about that, I want to know what that is too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do
I love that term, bidirectional mimicry. I
Yeah,
hadn't
that's
heard that.
Dr. Keller.
So it's like sort of like the art imitates life, imitates art, imitates life kind of idea.
Yeah.
Where it's like a feedback loop of
Yeah, I think if you look at the history, the uncomfortable history of UFOs, you'll find out that in the 1800s, you get these accounts from people where they see dirigibles
Yeah.
with like
Right.
propellers
like
and shit.
steampunk airship.
Steampunk.
Yeah.
So you're like, if you want to look at it that way, here's another theory. So the phenomenon is kind of doing this bidirectional mimicry of, oh, you're just about to get this in your real life, so we're going to show it to you. That's part of the theory is there's this educational prompting process
Yeah.
to move you along. So then when you get into the 50s,
Like a parent teaching a kid the alphabet.
sure. So that is, again, not my theory. People take a lot of what I say, do a clip, and then
Sure,
take it
sure,
out of context.
We're going to
You
make
know,
sure that when we
Jeremy
put this
says this.
on
Yeah, yeah.
Instagram, this is Jeremy's theory.
boom, boom, boom. Video helps because you can't like splice it without you looking like Max Headroom. But but I understand that's an art form in and of itself, is putting out your ideas about somebody by totally mangling what they say. I actually do appreciate it. Some of it's really funny now with AI.
Yeah.
Anyway, so if you look at the history of the UFO reporting, the actual reporting, you have these things that go back into ancient times that are talking about kind of angels coming down on sun-like, objects. And then it becomes this steampunk kind of machine. And it's just on the edge of our reality of what should be coming. And then you get these really weird aerodynamic saucers in the 50s and 60s. And then as you move up in through UFO history, we are recognizing things that we can now describe. And it might just be a translation thing. Like back before any technology, all you can say is it looks like the sun that hovered and came down to Earth.
Because there's no tech around you to compare it to.
Right.
It's an orb. It's a shiny, rosy orb.
It goes back to like the Bhagavad Gita with like flaming chariots and things like that.
Yeah.
Totally.
And then, the wheel is a great invention. So the wheels within wheels is one description back in the Bible. It's like wild stuff. But eventually we have to look at it as a whole and say, is it our inability to describe what we're seeing because we're just doing it from the perspective we can? Or are these things kind of imitating? And like Jacques Vallée once said, there appears to be a learning process with this engagement. And we're not even talking about consciousness, and we're not talking about the NHI, non-human intelligence. And those reports come with them. So every time somebody gives me a report of a close encounter, I just wait for a second after they tell me, because there's always something more.
Yep.
There's always, and they're embarrassed to say it because it'll make their whole report look a little bit different to me. And I'm like, just go ahead and say it. You're not gonna, I have heard it all at this point. Hopefully not all of it, but I've heard it. And there's always, or not always, there is often, the majority of times, some sort of psychological impact that appears to be more than a feeling about what happened. It appears to be a connection or communion with whatever it is they experienced. And that's just, I have to report that to be fact because that's what comes into me.
Jake Barber just said this on News Nation about so this was the conversation the article that we talked about with Janice Schmieding on last episode.
Right.
The egg-shaped UFO retrieval. It wasn't that egg-shaped UFO, but it was another pickup that he was talking about that was unseen. It was in some sort of crate. And as he was flying that back to the drop-off, 20-minute flight, he said he was filled with this immense emotion of like love, but also sadness. And he said, he's like this career military guy, big tough guy, who's like trying to fly a helicopter, and he's starting to cry because he's so overcome with emotion. And he knew that it had to do with whatever that they were carrying, and you do hear these stories that there is this immense, almost spiritual thing that happens to people. Not every time, but I mean, if we're going to get into it, you know what I mean? Like,
why not? I mean,
like the alien abduction stuff, the ideas, the reports of people being like, the thing that I came away from is we have to take care of our planet. Like we're endangering everything, that we're walking on a knife's edge. It's a weird thing.
Yeah, it's weird because it's unusual to us to put that in our kind of cosmology that we've grown up with. It's not necessarily weird in other times in human history, but the materialistic point of view where we have established ourselves and we've achieved some great things, it is weird, from our perspective now. But I don't. Yeah.
No, I'm sorry.
What
I'm
are
just
you
laughing. I'm
about?
just having the idea of like aliens on another planet just like looking at men and being like, okay, we got to teach them about feelings. We just have to
This has
do it.
gone too
It's gone-
far.
Make him cry.
It's 2025. Let's teach him it's okay
Give
to
him
cry.
joy.
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't know these. So I'll tell you, just because they're popping in my mind right now, which is a neat thing, is when you see an engineer who calls you up. This happened to me. This engineer, and he's trying to explain to me the nature of the light emanating from this craft. And I just was letting him talk, and it was hard for him to create the right, he was struggling to find the words to describe the unique nature of this light emanating from this UFO, which, man, I hear that all the time. It's hard to describe it, but having an engineer, it's hard to describe. It's hilarious because these guys, they know how to describe every little detail and every angle and exactly the photons of light and how it refracts with your eye. I mean, it's amazing to see these guys go. But they get stumped. People get stumped when it's outside of the perspective. So you could say it was the most beautiful light I've ever seen. Okay, well, what does that mean? Why? It was like, why was it the most beautiful? Well, it was this gold undulating color. And I was like, okay, well, that's beautiful. But what more to it than just that? Well, it was almost like as if it was. I know this sounds wild, but alive. And I was like, okay. And so I'm trying to understand why it's difficult for an engineer to explain to me just what would be pretty simple thing about the color of that light. And by the way, shout out to my buddy because it's beautiful. And thank you for kind of explaining all this to me. It was really cool to hear this unpacked, by the way, over years.
Yeah.
I want to come back to it, right? So you've got this craft. It looks like a disc, perfect, saucer on top of saucer.
Mm-hmm.
First starts looking like a star, but it's wobbling. Boom. Instantaneously, it's right over a very sensitive installation sitting there. But it's almost like undulating. That's me. I broke the
Whoa.
rule.
Oh my God,
Terrified everybody.
I broke the rule with my alarm. Sorry, guys. I thought I had
that was like
canceled my
perfect
alarms.
timing. I was like seeing it, and then
Yeah.
I was like, "What is that? It's here!"
So it's undulating like this, right? And then it's emanating this gold hue that's like kind of rolling or undulating down, and then it's giving this feeling to the individual that it is sentient or something like that. And we've heard about that the craft itself could be the conscious part,
100%.
and that the occupants are some sort of, let's just go there, cybernetic organism that is
100%.
printed by flesh. I mean, pretty wild stuff,
We have to take a break, but let's come right back and talk about this. I'm so sorry, everybody.
We'll be right back.
We'll be back. All right, we're back.
We're back.
Yes, this idea that the crafts are sentient, that the occupants might be part of the hardware that can sentient hardware that can detach from its shell
wetware.
or wetware.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
wetware. Right. Thank
Yeah.
you. I knew there was a term for it.
Yeah.
And that I also think that all of this could be advanced artificial intelligence.
Sure.
I mean, we send robots into space right now.
Yeah.
If we could send a probe to Mars that would do the things that UFOs and aliens are doing here, we would. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Bioengineer or create a pilot that can specifically fly that craft through whatever means it takes for interstellar travel and survive. Going all the way back to Roswell, we hear stories about how the bodies, the mouths were pockets, and there were no navels, there were no genitalia. To me, this says that these things were not necessarily, they don't need to eat,
Right.
they don't need to reproduce,
They're just made.
they're just made,
Mhm.
So I'm a big proponent of this idea because it kind of makes the most, as bizarre and that it is, and kind of sad as it is in a way, I don't know. It's
I think it's beautiful.
yeah. I mean,
this idea of, imagine like an intelligence that's billions of years old that has transcended the physical form,
yeah,
but can interface directly with nature and biology and just spread throughout the universe as like this consciousness that can exist in sort of any form. It's like mastered reality.
Mastered telepathy,
Yeah.
interstellar travel.
And I would jump to the conclusion, and I realize that we're not there, but that if something reached that level, it would be largely benign. Because of why would it fight us? It's not concerned about resources at that point. I mean, that's to say, if this is actually what it is.
Right.
But if it were that, in my mind, it's something that's so far beyond.
Well, it would have to
above us.
evolve to a point where
Yeah.
its own species or race didn't destroy themselves.
Yeah.
So
I think
maybe
that
it's
also
overcome all the shit that we're dealing with right now.
Right. But then that also
2025.
places us somewhere on that giant wheel, right? That's like always going, where we're just now sort of birthing this proto-sentient AI. AI is definitely not sentient. I'm not saying that. But we're reaching those steps, and we're somewhere in that cycle that's always going in the universe somewhere,
towards
you know?
that.
And so it's like constantly sort of inventing itself in this circular time-space loop. And we're just like a seed growing a tree. You know what I mean?
I'm not convinced that we're not an artificial intelligence. I know that comes down, that comes down to a definition, right? It is, in my kind of exploration of thought, I was talking about something I call the techno-terrestrial hypothesis. You know, something that is, to me,
Sound of that.
interesting. I was talking about this years ago, trying to understand, you know, and weave together the best insights that I have on this, but it does, there's an argument to be made that human consciousness is somehow embedded, almost like directed panspermia, though, onto Earth, and that this is happening all over the vast universe by maybe another intelligence, maybe, as you said, transcended the need for physical form, right? So if that's the case, we would be an artificial intelligence. And then we say, well, are we sentient? Well, it depends how you define that term. Sentience might be a multi-layered thing, and we are experiencing sentience on one level. So if you really kind of step back, again, I'm not convinced wholly that we aren't some semi-artificial intelligence. It is also an idea that we may provide some use to another intelligence. So you said, why would they do that? Why would they go around at that point and create these forms and seed? I think we're talking about like seeding different planets and stuff. You know, why would you do that? And I don't know the motivation of a conscious being that has had billions of years, transcended physical form, all this stuff we're hypothesizing about.
Of course, yeah.
So, but I do wonder that when we get to this point, maybe this is happening everywhere. Maybe the idea is that you can seed this form of life, this may be artificial to that planet, but this form of life around the cosmos. And maybe there's a purpose for that. You know, I have heard, these old school ideas that, we are containers for something. Well, containers for what? What is value? What is the commodity that we are helping to carry under that theory and idea? And, of course, there's a lot of other ideas about that. It could be, the soul. But again, how do you define that? Like, what does that mean? We are I feel like I'm wearing a meat suit, but the me, the ego and the self and the consciousness, that this is just helping me to express that. So if I'm already feeling that, I can only imagine the possibilities of what the human design, could be holding. Even within our genetic code, there's information that builds us. That's information. That's data. So maybe this is a techno-terrestrial kind of thing where, the whole universe as we know it is constantly seeded with what we call life.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And that life could go back to exist before the Big Bang, before,
Sure.
it could have come here from the previous universe. It could, who knows how far back in time, this thing has existed, right? That we're talking about.
And then I really resonate with that idea where it's like, then our purpose is then to sort of reintegrate technology in our modern world and then invent the thing that created us again in many points all over the universe, all at once, all the time.
Seemingly
Exactly.
in conjunction with nature, too.
Right. Yeah.
Alongside nature, not in a destructive manner
Right.
towards nature.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because you can't have you can't destroy nature, because if you do, you're blowing up your own planet, and then it doesn't work.
But that's like not all the plants flower,
Right.
you know, and
right.
hopefully we flower.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But that would tie into why people are getting these messages of like, be good shepherds to your planet.
Mhm.
Don't go the way of the bomb. Go the way of like love, peace, harmony.
That seems
So
to be the message
higher
that is
intelligence,
conveyed.
yeah.
we can collectively grow and become something and leave the planet, spread this further, keep the grand thing going, you know?
Which is funny because sometimes the encounters that I hear that I believe that person had that experience, it's an indifference, a complete sterile indifference. And then other times you hear about these very powerful, often positive, sometimes frightening experiences, like at the Arrow School, and Liesel and Salma are friends of mine. I've heard them tell me over time what they encountered when they're very close to that being that landed at the kids' school. And they said it was like, the word they used was mesmerizing. Like it held their attention while putting almost like pictures within their minds. And Liesel said she had to break away, and then it was just gone. Like the second she broke away, it's just gone. So you wonder, maybe that's a form of communication, but you do wonder, are they telling us as it is, or are they telling us as they want us to believe it? And that's the other issue that you have, is just
Are
because,
they spreading disinformation?
you got to ask. You got some super smart guy come in the room, they can convince you of some shit. You got to be fucking careful. You don't just believe him because he's got a PhD. He could be full of shit.
Well, I always said to my, when I was younger, and my mom, I would push back on mom. Well, how do we know? I remember asking her, how do we know that the God in the Bible, this is going to be, sacrilegious for people. I was like, how do we know that that's the real God? And she looked at me like, well, what are you talking about? And I said, well, okay, we have a phone in the house. The phone rings. You pick up the phone and the person says, hi, I'm the person who invented the phone. You wouldn't believe them. You know that you just don't assume. So how do we not know that like there are other voices just getting on the line to be like, hi, I'm your God. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How do we not know?
It's a great song, by the way. My God Has a Telephone. I don't know if you know that. It's one of the greatest songs. Yeah.
This is kid logic here, but you know what I'm saying?
No,
Like,
totally.
You don't take it all for granted.
There's
I
nothing
guess.
you're more susceptible to than someone telling you what you want to hear.
My mom was really mad at me that day, by the way. She did not like that. She's like, no, that's not how it works.
That's not how it works. Go to your room.
Let's come back down to earth a little bit in a sense. I want to talk a little bit about Immaculate Constellation. This document that you brought forth. That it seems that you were not given proper credit for.
It wasn't about credit, but we can talk about that later. Yeah.
Poor choice of words on my part.
Yeah.
So this came up in the congressional hearings, stories that or the reporting that came out of the congressional hearings on November 13th. And one of them was that this document was presented that was what?
Okay, yeah. So this is a report. It's a report on a program called Immaculate Constellation. It has since then changed names. Again, this all has to be kind of vetted and taken out into public in a larger way than it has yet. And I think that's going to take the author of this report to explain the internal investigation, why this person decided to become what we call a whistleblower, which is there's got to be an injustice or something illegal or a reason why that this person decided to kind of put second their own selves and their own life experience to, hey, this is important for people to know. So we have to hear from the author at some point, and I know we're going to. But
no, you know who the author is. We, the public, do not.
Right. And the author's a human being.
Yeah.
Okay. As far as I know. Yeah. But I think that what was the battle, what was the real fight was, okay, can we validate who this person is? Can we validate that they had the roles that they said they did, that it is potentially correct, that they got exposed to this information, and where are they coming from wanting to bring this forward? And there's always this dance that occurs with, potential whistleblowers and journalists, because you're both like testing each other. They're like testing if they can trust you, and you're testing if you could trust them. So this process for me with this Immaculate Constellation report started before the public knew about it, right? Michael Schellenberger did a story on it, and that's how the words and the name got out there. But in fact, I had taken the author in to meet with congressional members the month prior to make sure on a kind of twofold here, to make sure that everything that I was being told and exposed to, that same understanding by name and face was going to be shown to Congress as well. And there's more history to it that I'll talk about at another point after this person speaks for themselves. But, you know, it doesn't just start a couple months before. There's a whole thing going on. But what happens is bringing people like that in eye to eye with people who are part of the UAP, group in Congress, it's a risk because you don't know if you can trust everybody within government. And when you're bringing them into these offices, there's potential for leaks, for betrayal. There's potential for repercussions for the individual.
Political maneuvering. People are power hungry.
That's what I witnessed, I think.
Yeah.
With the whole chain of custody issue, right? But like, so what I was doing was I was positioned with the people that I trusted to try to bring forward the best information to the American public. And I was being tapped with George Knapp for that, either to testify or to provide those firsthand people. So this is one of the things that I was trying to do, was get this information onto congressional records so the American public could then look at it through that lens.
And can I pause here, interject and ask you, what was the information?
Sure.
What was in the documents
for
people who don't know?
So I think everybody should go read it for themselves, but essentially it was about a program that is alleged that our government was running, and that this program was a data collection program on all visual elements related to UAP. So imagine a satellite from space to air to sea to possibly underwater. Any data, visual data or otherwise, that we have collected on unidentified UFOs, UAP of non-human intelligence origin is what inside they're very comfortable saying that. That all of this would be aggregated, pulled off of a lot of these sensitive servers and collated into a more sensitive system that then could be analyzed. So this is an example of instantaneous movement, which is one of the 5 observables people talk about with UFOs.
In other words, it's an alien library database, basically.
Sure. And there's a lot of different, I like the way you said it.
In our dum-dum.
Yeah, in our dum-dum brains.
In
BCC language, it's an alien database library.
You're not incorrect. It's just that I wrestle with these terms, like even alien, like what does that mean? So I have to be a little bit more discerning, but yes, for the average
your job.
This would be
it's
UFO library.
It's our job to draw the children's book version.
So this UFO library, and it's just one of like many of these endeavors or operations to kind of collect and source more of this information so it can be better analyzed, which inherently is good. But I think the argument was that this program was being hidden from Congress and oversight, like all the UFO programs tend to be.
Yeah, and the thing that I want to remind our listeners, and people will go like, well, what does it matter with Congress? Congress holds the purse strings.
Right.
Why they're interested is because they're supposed to know where the money they're signing off on the government, the military can go spend this. When part of the reason we bring them in, right, is just because they're like, well, we'd never allotted a budget for this, so we need to make sure that this is all above board, and obviously it's not above board.
Right. And I think about it this way, easy way or hard way. I've talked a lot about this. They talk about catastrophic disclosure, where people just come out, whistleblowers come out, shit gets leaked. Like, if we want to go that route, we're going to fucking go that route.
Right.
But if there is a process in which whistleblowers can have protection, if there is a process that they can do this right, making sure they don't damage national security, then that's the way that a lot of whistleblowers choose to do it. Or I would like to hope that I could help facilitate that. And I've been trying.
Especially when Arrow is sitting over there saying, yes, come to us.
Well, that's very dangerous that Arrow's doing that. I want to be really clear about that. Look, they've got a great new director. I hear he's really cool. But he has said, I can't even part my hair without authorization from above. So the problem is Arrow, in its first rendition, under Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick
Mm-hmm.
was 100% a counterintelligence program
Okay.
where they were trying to get people to come forward, tell them what they knew, where's the hardware, what's going on. And as soon as they got that information, they distorted what people said on the official record. It was a fishing expedition, zero trust for Arrow.
Wow.
Now, you might have a really good human being who is now in that, I'll call it Project Blue Box, because instead of Blue Book, it's now Blue Box. You can't get outside of that box. So even you got a good guy inside.
J. Allen Hynek, good guy.
Right. And when he got out, what did he do? He told the truth about UFOs and started repenting for the rest of his life, trying to live, back what he did, calling things swamp gas.
Yeah, because oftentimes in a program like this, I'd imagine if I'm writing the screenplay version of this, you want to get a guy who's passionate about it. You want to get a person who believes in this or who wants to get to the bottom of it and then put them in a position where it's like, that's not actually happening.
Yeah, you want somebody you can control.
Yeah.
And that's how you put in the position. If I was offered that job, I'd like to think that I would reject it, because your job is a very controlled, don't let too much of this out kind of thing. And look, somebody's got to be in that job. I'd rather be a nice guy and a good guy, which I hear the new guy is. But ultimately, we're not going to get the information through a structure and an architecture that is created to keep that from you. So now it kind of falls back to, can we work with Congress and can we work with those mechanisms to get the assurances we need for the safety of the people that are coming forward? And so I've tried 2 hearings now. I have tried to bring those people right up to that plate if they wanted. That was why I pushed to get Immaculate Constellation onto congressional record, because that is, it's a valid report and we should really look at it.
Okay.
And it does talk about this database and so much more. And I think that's why people got to read it, but you got to hear from the person separately. But now I'm at the point with what I saw go down in Congress, which should have been a clerical error. So I told you, like 2 months before I'm working, I walk the whistleblower in eye to eye so that they can vet and have plenty of time to know, should we put this on congressional record? They have to make sure it's not bullshit too.
Absolutely.
So I was facilitating that, right?
And they're telling you, we're going to do it. We're going to put it on congressional record.
I mean,
put this person.
Yeah, not in the first meeting.
Right.
We're presenting this information, saying this is why we think it's important, and I'm standing behind it, saying you do your own research, but here's the whole thing. You can check it. You don't have to like vet or validate somebody that has already been vet and validated by their own government. You can just go check in. So we're really going out on a limb here. The guy was really going out on a limb here too, and also me bringing him in, because if he's trying to fuck me with bad information, then I look really bad. So I used it as a cooking pressure cooker right there to get everybody together. So that was back in September. And then in October, the world hears the words Immaculate Constellation. And I'm like, you look at any news interview, I'm excited. You've got this badass journalist.
Here it comes.
You got this badass journalist, and it's not just me anymore. You got some, somebody else with bona fides that like is talking about this. Okay, great. And so all of a sudden that starts coming out, but I have to go through this whole process where behind the scenes, I'm like, look, here's more information. What do you need? Then I bring it again and I submit it to accountability and oversight, because then they have to see what it is that I want on congressional record. So a bigger group of people now are seeing this document, and it's refined down to it's 11 pages. And then I gave it, and then they asked me to write an explanatory kind of cover page. And there's more story behind that I'll tell later, but just to accompany the document, contextualize it, and why the person at this point is not speaking for themselves. So I create that the night before, I submit it again, and then on the floor of the hearing, I brought a copy that had the final kind of authorization. I'm like, this is the one you copy, right? And then, they attributed it to someone else intentionally, which was very bizarre to me. Didn't know why.
Took your involvement, name and involvement out of it.
Yeah.
On the record.
And it wasn't just that. Representative Burchett has been public. He was on a podcast the next day when asked why. Because, of course, Nancy Mace, she met the guy, the chair who said the fake words on the stage. She met the guy. They all know. I've been working on this for months with them. So my question is, why would they do that?
What was the lie they told on the stage?
On the stage, I love that. It is a stage.
Yeah.
I think they call it the dais or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just that that was brought by Michael Schellenberger.
Right.
And it wasn't. I actually showed it to him the night before. didn't let him keep a copy. That was by design because we had been through this whole process
So
for
weird.
2 months. So it was just it was like Twilight Zone. And I was sitting there and she's saying that. And I'm like, hey man, you going to correct the record? Like, and it wasn't just like, hey, you turned in my homework, right? What I saw go down there was some sort of manipulation to make you. So look at it this way. They wanted you to believe that something that wasn't factual was factual. Why? Well, that's where Burchett kind of stepped in and he said the truth. The second he got the mic, even though they're trying to cough over what he's saying, he told the truth, said I brought the documents and whistleblowers in, and he said my name. Well, he had been told not to say my name. And they said because of a security issue. The fuck? That's news to me.
Wow.
I didn't know that I was a security issue. Like, you can come talk to me. What am I doing wrong?
Right.
So for me, it was a bigger thing.
Somebody upstairs is going, not this guy.
Not this
working
guy.
with
But it
this
wasn't.
guy.
It wasn't even just like not this guy. He's fucking weird looking and drops a lot of F-bombs.
Yeah.
That's not a security issue.
No.
So this became really personal for me. One of my friends in an agency said, oh yeah, bro, that's persona non grata. They want to make you a non-person. I was like, oh, thanks. Like, what does that mean? Is this supposed to scare me? I thought you were my
Now
friend.
you're going to be an alien. It's
So
fine.
I just, at this point, what I just saw was an intentional shaping of the emerging UAP narrative, the thing I had kind of warned against. And I'm seeing an inkling of this where people knowingly lie, either just bold-faced, like up on the dais, or by omission. And it haunts me because it seems so small, but it's not. And it's not because we're asking for transparency. We're fighting for transparency and to collude and agree behind the door before you come in because of this sense of you got to be careful. This person's a security issue. Everybody should know. Everybody should know about that. And everybody should question why that little lie. And I don't have the answer, but I have my suspicions.
Okay.
And that's kind of where I have to leave it.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Fair enough.
Those are the facts. Like I've just told you the facts.
Yep.
And then from there go on. But look, let's back up a little bit. Oh, hello, baby girl.
Nova's telling him,
No.
Jeremy, it's okay.
Nova only tells
Yeah.
the truth.
Yeah.
So if you back up a little bit, the core of this is going to be about what is said in the Immaculate Constellation document. What is it trying to tell the American public? So we've got these secret programs of reverse engineering. We know about these UFOs. They're not from here. And we track them and we bring them into like secret archives. And we're just not telling you about it. And then you're going to hear more about that from the author himself. And that's what I think is important. We redirect from the Shakespearean drama of politically hungry people that are being positioned for your trust. And we go back to the core of what this is even about. And what it's about is transparency on the UFO issue.
Right.
It feels like you got to do this, independently.
Yeah.
It feels like
Agreed.
it has to be done by, by the people. You know what I mean? Like, it's got to be, because it's going to get caught, it's going to get caught up in this bullshit that we're all,
We got to do it.
fuck Congress. Let's do it
Journalists.
ourselves. Yeah, journalists.
Yeah, and it's just the people that witness them and, whatnot. Like, it's really great. The government, we get some stuff out once in a while from whistleblowers, and that's very important. I encourage more whistleblowers to come forward no matter what.
And that's not to say, I know that there are people in Congress on both sides that want to get to the center of this issue.
Absolutely.
Harry Reid, was like, I flew planes in the Korean War and saw weird stuff. And I know other people, Republicans, independents, not just Democrats, who also saw this stuff when they were 20 and flying these planes and want to know what the hell it is.
It's amazing, actually, on say both sides of the aisle. I don't know a lot about politics, but yeah, it's amazing. You get people that are fighting for this, and we have some real, heroes with it. Representative Burchett is the one that I'll highlight today. I know Representative Luna has done a great job. I know, Moskowitz is another one. I think he's a Democrat too. So they all kind of work together. I think that's amazing. I just want I want people to be honest and truthful when you're conveying this, because we're asking for transparency. So
just trust is
don't
on the
fucking
line.
lie.
Trust is on the line here. So
trust is on the line.
And once it's violated,
you can't
even
go
to
back.
The smallest thing, which is, this is not necessarily a small thing, but then how can I trust the big thing?
It should be a small thing. This is just about chain of custody. Like, if I'm to do this again, and the public should want me to do this again, I am I am telling people I can walk you into some trusted people's offices and they're going to do their best to shoot you straight. And then when this happens, I can't do that again without asking a billion questions of, is it going to be distorted again?
Am I going to get fucked?
It's not just me, all of us.
The document itself, the truth.
And then it causes that with the document. All of a sudden there's this Shakespeare drama. It's about the document. It's about the guy. But we got to acknowledge this. I can't just say that didn't happen. I didn't make it happen. Those be the facts. So now we have to move forward, but we have to have a sort of chain of custody. When you're trying to get something under congressional record, it's going through this huge process since September. You can't just make something up once you get on the dais.
Well, no, I mean, chain of custody is like fundamental to evidence, period.
Yes.
Like, and that's why something will get thrown out in court if the chain of custody is broken, even in the slightest way. And, that can have huge implications in a case. So it is like, it's like vital to this system that we've all created together of this is how we say this is real, this is true, and this is not.
Right. And this is about trust. It's just about getting it on congressional record. Like we could validate it post-mortem that it's the same, information, but it was like when you have a process that you can trust to bring people forward and to bring written or otherwise evidence to Congress, you cannot fuck with that chain of custody on me or I'm not doing it again.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's next?
Wild story.
What's the next step for you?
Next step for me.
What can you tease?
My right foot forward.
Yeah.
I try not to tease anything.
Yeah.
Crazy shit comes out of my mouth all the time, though. So let me think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, because I'm excited about what's next. There's always something next. There's so many things cooking at one time. I mean, I hope in 2025. We're going to have more. I know we're going to have more whistleblowers come forward.
I think the thing that was exciting, and I don't know if you agree or not, or how much you've looked into it, but the thing that was really cool about the Jake Barber egg-shaped, I was like, now we have actually someone who witnessed the craft, saying, "I saw it." You know what I mean? I laid my eyes on it. I flew
on the news.
I picked it on the news. So I'm hoping more firsthand witnesses, and not just like. Anybody who knows anything, please come forward. But I'm excited by the idea of like, nope, I saw it, I handled it, I was there at the retrieval. I hope more people like that come forward.
Yeah, and we need to have a process for them to do so. And it appears to me more and more that process is them going to journalists and getting out in front of it, because the threats that occur in this space, which I know maybe for people it's hard to believe or understand. I have witnessed it firsthand. I talk to people regularly who are experiencing, even at work, just having these repercussions. Think about it if no one's nefariously going after you. The second you go out there on the news and put your face, if you're a government employee, you think you're getting a clearance again? You think you're ever going to have a job? You're going to be shunned. You're going to be held in purgatory if you're not already. So you have to be really desperate or really profoundly patriotic in order to come out while you're still active, right? But you are going to see that. I can guarantee that to you. I know you're going to. I'm involved in those things.
Yeah.
So I hope we see more of that. People are courageous. They come out, whistleblowers, if it's okay for their families and their lives. I hope they do it, even if out of self-defense. And I hope we see more footage.
Yeah, I do too. I'm sure you'll get us some. We didn't even talk about the jellyfish.
Oh, no.
There's so much to
Too
cover.
much. Jeremy, thank you so much for being here. Where can people follow your work?
I think I'm the most reachable human being on planet
It sounds like it.
It's just easy. This is easy. I know. So you can go to weaponizedpodcast.com. That's George motherfucking Knapp and me doing our podcast, which I love. It's on my YouTube, which is /Jeremy Corbell. And that's where we post the visual episodes. Although I just heard they're up on Spotify, or a couple of them are up on Spotify visually.
Yeah, Spotify's starting to get into the visual podcast.
But social media, that's where it is, because anything Jeremy Corbell, that's where I really get to kind of hear what people have to say when I look at it.
Great. Well, we'll tag you in our posts. People will be able to find you, I'm sure. Thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure.
Thanks, man.
It's been so exciting to watch your progression in this field since we last had you on about 5 or 6 years ago. So I'm excited to see what happens next.
Nice to make progress.
Yeah, man.
I hope we do.
You're fighting a good fight. You're out there.
I'm fighting a fight. I don't know. I'm getting battered.
Have a tea. Have a chamomile tea.
That sounds good.
Yeah. Self-care, and then get back out there.
No, I'm okay. I'm made for this. We'll do it.
Awesome.
Right on.
Thanks, man. All right, everybody. Jeremy Corbell. Come on, dude.
What a legend.
That guy is a legend.
Yeah, it's just legend is the word for him. Yeah.
I mean, he's doing the real thing.
Yeah, he's like really putting himself out there and doing it. Like, I remember like seeing him sitting there in that congressional hearing that time. I was like, I know that guy.
Like, we went to his movie premiere, and now he's like sitting in the front row of Congress.
That's such a trip. Yeah,
getting fucked over.
But he is of a very small group of people that are really pushing, and he's so passionate about it, and he's so meticulous and careful about it that he really is so committed to the truth. And I respect the hell out of it. I think it's awesome.
Too.
Yeah,
I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
I could not do it.
I don't think I'm cut out for what he's able to do.
No, there's absolutely no way. We can barely do this podcast. What are you talking about?
But I sure like hanging out with him.
Yeah, we do. We do love chatting about special feelings and UFOs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Government agencies. All right. Well, we want to thank all of you listening at home, including our dear Patreons over at BCC, The Other Side. Let's do some Patreon shout outs.
Let's do it.
All right. Courtney.
Thank you, Courtney.
Lisa Cleveland.
Thanks, Lisa.
Eric Berlins.
Thanks, Eric.
Adam Smith.
Thanks, Adam.
Ian.
Thanks, Ian.
Bethany B.
Oh, thanks, Bethany.
Cosmeteer.
Oh, welcome to the ranks.
Rob Whitaker, Cosmeteer.
Thanks, Rob. Welcome.
Brad Sokol.
Thanks.
Sokol.
Thanks, Brad.
Scott Birmingham.
Oh, hey, thanks, Scott.
Noah Vasseur, Cosmeteer.
Thank you, Noah. Welcome.
Alan Dahlquist.
Thank you, Adam.
Bong or Bang.
Thanks, Bang. Thanks, Bong.
Anybody who's like named, whose name is an onomatopoeia.
Yeah.
It's good in my book. Mackenzie Bromwell.
Thanks, Mackenzie.
And finally, our favorite name of the week, Gator Girl Believer. Thank you, Gator Girl.
Thank you, Gator Girl.
We appreciate you. You guys can join Gator Girl and all of our friends over at BCC The Other Side at patreon.com/BigfootCollectorsClub. You'll get 3 bonus episodes every month, access to the BCC Discord. Join the Cosmeteer for a little bit more moolah every month, and you can get exclusive music tracks from Riley and ad-free episodes like the one that you're listening to right now. And we're also starting to drop some exclusive Patreon video, putting that back up over there.
That's
the Cosmeteer as well. So
yeah.
Join us over there. Anything in the collector's corner before we head out?
I mean, wow. I've been uncollecting. I'm uncollecting.
You are uncollecting. You're unfollowing. You're unsubscribing.
Yes. I've tried to streamline my life, and I'm cleaning house, and there are certain things that I just don't really want to take part in anymore. So
that's fine.
I'm doing it. It feels good.
Yeah. Saving money too.
Yeah, saving money. Canceling stuff. I realized I don't really want this. So
I'm just a big old consumer over here. I really gotta fix all that.
Content.
Yeah. Yum. Severance continues to be great.
That one. Caitlin still has her Apple.
Yeah,
and
I was gonna say
I'm gonna finish Severance.
I was like, I know you're not abandoning Severance halfway through season 2.
I'm gonna finish Severance.
Yeah. I'll make sure you have access. Let's see. I've been on a Traders kick.
Okay.
The Traders. Do you know about Traders?
No.
Oh my God. I know people listening do. It's on Peacock. It's hosted by Alan Cumming. It's based on a British show. So you know the game Mafia, Werewolf?
Sure. Yeah, of course.
They basically took that party game and turned it into a reality competition show in a Scottish castle that is hosted by Alan Cumming.
I mean, that sounds really fun.
It is a blast. And I'm all caught up on the new episodes of season 3. So I started watching the original British version. And I must say, if you are looking to just binge something, if you're looking for some comfort TV right now, Traders UK season 2 is maybe one of the best seasons of any reality show I've ever seen in my life. It's great.
Man.
So I'll just recommend that.
I'll come over and watch some with you.
It's very, very fun. It's very good. So check Traders, Severance, and then I'm finally starting the new Indiana Jones game for the Xbox, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. So I'll report back on that in the next couple weeks.
Cool.
Very excited about that. All right. We love you guys. Thank you, everybody. We're gonna, we'll be hanging around on the other side. As we mentioned, if we don't see you there, we'll see you back here next week with an all-new episode of BCC. Until then, good night.
And go get regressed. All righty. Nova, you're the star. You're the star, buddy. You're the star of the show.
Bigfoot Collectors Club is produced and engineered by Riley Bray and executive produced by Riley Bray and Michael McMillan. Our theme song, Come Alone, is by Suneaters, courtesy of Lotuspool Records. Follow Suneaters on Spotify. For 3 bonus episodes every month and ad-free episodes, check out BCC The Other Side at patreon.com/BigfootCollectorsClub.